A cup of coffee for me. A cup of coffee for me. A glass of white wine for my friend. A glass of white wine for my friend. A lot of jobs aren't interesting. A lot of jobs aren't interesting. A phone call. A phone call. Again. Again. And sometimes without them. And sometimes without them. Call. Call. Did you like it? Did you like it? Do they live in San Francisco? Do they live in San Francisco? Do you like San Francisco? Do you like San Francisco? Do you still work for Citibank? Do you still work for Citibank? For them. For them. He always buys a lot of things for them. He always buys a lot of things for them.
He has a really interesting job. He has a really interesting job. He has 2 little boys. He has 2 little boys. He used to work for Citibank. He used to work for Citibank. Her husband can't go with her. Her husband can't go with her. Here's the number I want. Here's the number I want. His job is more interesting. His job is more interesting. His job wasn't very interesting. His job wasn't very interesting. How old is your younger daughter? How old is your younger daughter? I can make the phone call. I can make the phone call. I don't have the phone number. I don't have the phone number. I don't see them often. I don't see them often. I have to call again later. I have to call again later. I have to make a phone call. I have to make a phone call.
I have 2 sons. I have 2 sons. I haven't seen them since January. I haven't seen them since January. I live in San Francisco. I live in San Francisco. I need a phone book. I need a phone book. I often come here with my friends. I often come here with my friends. I used to live in Mexico City. I used to live in Mexico City. I used to work for Citibank in Seattle. I used to work for Citibank in Seattle. Interesting. Interesting. It was interesting. It was interesting. It was the wrong number. It was the wrong number.
It was very cold. It was very cold.
It's expensive too. It's expensive too.
It's less interesting. It's less interesting.
I'm going to call again later. I'm going to call again later. I've lived there for 3 years. I've lived there for 3 years.
Job. Job. My job is very interesting. My job is very interesting. My son used to work for Citibank too. My son used to work for Citibank too. My work was interesting. My work was interesting. Next week, she's going to Boston. Next week, she's going to Boston. Our younger daughter was in Boston. Our younger daughter was in Boston. Phone book. Phone book. She's going to Boston without him. She's going to Boston without him. The older one is 25. The older one is 25. The phone number. The phone number.
The weather isn't very nice. The weather isn't very nice. The wrong number. The wrong number. Their friends live there. Their friends live there. There's a telephone over there. There's a telephone over there. They both live in Colombia. They both live in Colombia. They often come to San Francisco. They often come to San Francisco. They still live in Seattle. They still live in Seattle. They're very beautiful, aren't they? They're very beautiful, aren't they? To call. To call. To make a phone call. To make a phone call. To make. To make. Traveling is interesting too. Traveling is interesting too. Traveling is very expensive. Traveling is very expensive. Where do you live now? Where do you live now? Wrong. Wrong. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. You live in Mexico City, don't you? You live in Mexico City, don't you?